Well, with us this morning is Barbara Stone and Tressa Rockwood from Rockwood Stone Wealth Management, and we are talking the top 5 questions you need to ask of your potential spouse before you get married.
Absolutely. You know, if you're planning on taking that walk down the aisle with your special someone, most financial planners and many long-time married couples will tell you that one of the biggest tests of compatibility is merging your finances.
Right.
So we've come up with a few questions that could help.
All right, so where do you start?
The first question is, how much debt do you have? Now, that could very well be a romance buzz killer, but in this era where $100,000 worth of student loan debt is not uncommon, that question is crucial.
Right.
You know, if you are carrying a lot of debt, volunteer that information. Do not go into a marriage with hidden debt because it could prove disastrous.
Okay.
So the questions keep getting more fun.
Right.
The next one
now
is...
we're going deeper. Now we're going deeper.
The next one is, you know, what is your credit score? Now, if that person doesn't know, it's probably a great time to find out. And if you find out and you find a wreckage, aren't you glad you learned about this early? Because, you know, we're not saying that money is more important than love, but it's really helpful to go into the marriage knowing what you're getting into.
Okay.
Can you handle you know, the financial distress this person is in, or can that person handle the financial distress you're in? And if there is a real severe problem, it would be a great time right now to get into some financial counseling, because letting it go and continuing on with marriage, that's one of the biggest things that leads to horrible arguments and divorce later on. So the fact you're taking care of it now is great.
And looking further down the road, kids.
What about kids? You know, typically couples talk about how many kids they want to have and when they want to have them, but very few of them talk about the expense. Kids are expensive, and so having a conversation about who's going to pay for college or grad school, are the kids, do you want the kids to go to a private school? Who's going to pay for that? Are one of the parents going to stay home to raise the kids while the other one works? So these types of questions are really very vital, as well as we can take it one step further and go, well, what's a fair allowance? Or is Billy going to get a TV set in his bedroom the minute he asks for it? Or how much is the tooth fairy going to bring when they visit? Some of this could be overkill, but certainly these kinds of questions, find out where your partner stands on these types of issues, because if you don't address it now before you have children, it may lead to some arguments after you have kids, and it's tough enough as it is when you start having children.
So real quick, the last 2 that we should be looking at.
Well, probably, what about your parents? Learn a little bit about each other's parents, because chances are you learned quite a bit as you were growing up about what to do with money. And then ask yourself questions. You know, are you a saver or a spender? And what do you expect of your spouse? Are you a risk taker when it comes to investments, or extremely conservative? And what is that of your spouse? Again, do you want to pay for your children's college education in full? Do you have different ideas about that? So,
and then the last one is, who's going to pay the bills? You know, who's going to pay the bills? Who's going to prepare the income taxes? Sometimes it's the most organized person ends up paying the bills. But, you know, this is, again, a question. And bank accounts. Are you going to have one joint bank account, or 2 separate accounts, or a combination of both? These are financial questions that you really need to discuss before you walk down the aisle. And as Tressa says,
call the financial planner before you call the wedding planner.
Good idea. Well, thank you very much for stopping by this